Hello and welcome to Gravicon's webinar about the space information management for building projects. I hope wherever you are in the world, you're safe in these turbulent times. It's 11 o'clock here in Finland, so we get started. As at the agenda today, there will be an introduction of the speakers. Then we're going to talk about the company Gravicon and our software solution Modelspace. Then we're going to deep dive in our data management building project. Then we're going to talk also about the Modelspace solution for data management. Then we're going to introduce the Gravicon channel program. Then at the end, we can open the mic for question and answers if you have any questions. The aim of this webinar is to let's say, unlock the possibility that Modelspace gives for data management in building projects and to create awareness that new methodology and new approaches can help construction professionals to reduce cost and improve the delivery schedule of their projects. So my name is about the speakers here. I'm your host. My name is Manuel Forlotti. I'm a senior manager in Gravicon in charge of international sales and partnerships. And other speakers is Johannes Aho. And he will speak, he will be the main speaker about the Modelspace, his product manager here in Gravicon as well. Here are our emails and phone number in case you want to contact us after this webinar. About the company, so Gravicon is offering software solution and BIM servicing for the construction industry. We have at the moment 5 offices in Finland, and we employ around 30 people. Gravicon is part of Build Smart International. We are very active also for the Build Smart in Finland, and which is part of the Build Smart International. We have active operation now in EMEA. We have operation also in South Africa, for example. And we are delivering projects since 2010, but our expertise and experience go way back that date. We have at the moment here in Finland, thousands of active Modelspace users, which are very happy with our solution. In Finland, we offer both a software solution and services, and we consider ourselves leading expert here in Finland. The picture on your right-hand side is our new office in Sturenkato in Helsinki. There's the picture by Maija Holma, is the Alvaro Säätiö, which is the Hall of Culture here in Helsinki. So what we're going to talk about today, and what Johan is going to talk about, is that we're going to talk first about Modelspace, what kind of problem we solve, the kind of challenge we tackle. So Modelspace is a SaaS solution for managing activities and operation in demanding construction projects. The main focus of this webinar will be the space management, which is designed to answer the technical requirement and functional demands in the space management for building facilities. If you have any questions, please, at the end, we're going to open the mic so we can have a conversation in case you have something you want to ask to Johannes or me. Now I will leave the stage to Johannes, which he will talk about the main topic of today, which is the information management.
Thank you, Manuel. I'm Johannes Aho. As Manuel introduced me, the product manager of the space management module of Modelspace. And as a product manager, my role is to overall tackle all the things that have to do with product development and sales, both in the services and software we have. My background is in architectural design, spanning about 10 years in different sizes and different types of projects. And for the last 4 years before this product management job, I was deeply in university campus development and university building projects. And what is typical in university building projects is the very strong need for user-centered design processes and user engagement in the building process and building projects. And one of the main things about that I learned, or the things that I have specialized in that part, is the engagement process of the user, and what kind of tools, what kind of processes of dialogue we need to engage the user, so that we actually get the information from them that we need. And especially in complex buildings with complex technical issues, for example, laboratory buildings, the user view of the function of the building is especially important. And a few words about user-centered design. This is not the main topic today, but I will lead us through this to the main topic. One of the things that I found, this is actually from the Wikipedia article, originally from usability.gov website. A few points about user-centered design. The design is based upon explicit understanding of users, tasks, and environments, which means that we need to understand the actual functions happening inside a building if we want to create a building that actually is useful and especially efficient. Users are involved throughout design and development basically means that we need to have the users along us through the whole design process of a building, not just in the start with the initial data, but we really need to keep them involved during the whole process. And the next two statements here are part of this also. The design has to be driven and refined by user-centered evaluation, and the process has to be iterative, basically meaning that we have to go again partly the same things with the users, and until we get it right. And then the design addresses the whole user experience, basically means that we have to understand the functions beyond just the physical aspects of the building and the physical aspects of a space. So it's more than just the technical needs, but it's also about how the functions are done in the building. And the last point is that the design team usually includes multidisciplinary skills and perspectives. And this kind of leads us to the main topic. When we have a very large variety of people in a project, this is what we're going to talk about. And as an example, in a laboratory building project I was involved a few years ago, we had one designer that only had to do with different gases in the building. So basically just one person designing all the different gas lines and gas systems for oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, and so on. And it was really important that even this specialized designer was heavily involved with the end users of the building and communicating with the users. And this is what leads us to the main topic of today, which is data management in a building project. And when we talk about a modern building project, and especially when we talk about a complex building project, there's lots of stakeholders with lots of different kind of data coming into the building project. For example, with administration, more and more we are getting regulation, both local, aerial, national, multinational even, and it's getting more complex and it's getting more detailed in the regulation we have to follow. And then of course we have international and national standards that come into the picture. Then of course we have in society different kind of demands and also data coming in other than regulation official standards with socioeconomic pressure and environmental demands. And for example, when we have environmental demands, either political or brand related, in the picture comes things like sustainability certificates like BREEAM or LEEDs, and with them there comes lots and lots of data needs, also data coming into the project, but also data needs from the projects for different kind of proving that the building is actually in the in the lines of the certificate. And then of course in the actual project, a building project, we have the owner and users. We already talked about the users, and the owner is of course the one that actually starts the project and owns the project. And there we have both functional needs and quality expectation. And already at this point we get a lots of initial data about what kind of things the building has to answer, what kind of needs, what kind of special requirements the building has to actually answer. And these can be everything from technical to social to even political sometimes. Then inside the project we of course have the designers, and the designers aren't necessarily they don't necessarily have any demands for the project or requirements, but they are the ones that bring lots of data into the whole project project sphere in a sense. And then of course we have the contractors and consults, and this varies a lot what kind of role they have, and are they more managing the project and the data, or are they actually also inputting lots of data. And the main thing we need to understand is that when we have lots of stakeholders, we are getting more and more data. The actual amount of data is increasing all the time. It's getting more complex and it's easily fractured. And when we say that the data is fractured, it means that it's getting into multiple locations. It's stored in different kind of equipment, everything from Excel sheet to emails to BIM models, different kind of data banks, and so on. And the challenge here is that when the data is fractured enough, it's challenging to manage it. Here is a few statements that we have created here in the company from our experience, and I would just like to get into these debate that what we mean by these. When we say 10% of data from the initial project phases is transferred to in-use utilization, we're talking about the flow of data from different phases of the project, and the flow of data during the life cycle of a building. And this is a big example about how the actual building phase or the construction phase and in-use phase of a building can be easily separated, and the flow of information is interrupted. Then when we say 30% of project-related misunderstandings can be avoided through easy-to-find project data, we are talking about communicating data and data accessibility. And when we have problems with the data accessibility, this is where misunderstandings that could be avoided will bring harm to the project. and 50% of risk to the cost and schedule of construction projects are not managed due to a lack of data flow. Once again, we're talking about managing the data and the flow of data. And here we have more concrete things that will happen if we are not managing the data correctly. And the cost and schedule are probably the most important things for the end client to actually have control in the project. And as an thought here, we state that easy to find, transparent and real-time updated data is instrumental for successful construction projects. And this is something that we do not see as a problem, but this is actually a possibility. If we are able to have data that is easy to find, transparent and real-time, then we have strong possibilities for successful construction projects. And then next thing I'm going to talk about is the actual flow of data in the life cycle of a building project. As we just said, in the design process, in the start of the building project, we have already lots of stakeholders in the project. We have the owner, users, project managers, designers, contractors, possible outside consultants, and so on. And easily, it's very easy to create a situation where most of these stakeholders only give the initial data, for example, the owner and users, and then they are dropped from the actual development and are more or less looking it from the sidelines. And we have to remember that in the early stages of design, most of the costs and the scale of the project is determined. So it's important that the initial data is based on all needed understanding of all the stakeholders of the project, and that understanding and that knowledge is also transferred to the next stages of the design. And then when we come from the design phase of a project to the construction phase, it's very common that all the initial data is taken as it is, and then it is even more fractured during the construction phase, and different kind of decisions on changes and different kind of decisions about the construction is fractured on different decision makers who don't necessarily have all the data needed for the decisions. So in the construction phase especially, it's very important that decisions are made with all the data available, and that the available data actually consists of all the data already created inside the project. And it's very typical that in a construction project, in this phase, there will be surprises of different kind of surprises that will affect both the cost and the timetable, and in the end, the quality of the building and the spaces. And very easily, the owner of the project and the client of all these different stakeholders is in the dark at this phase, in a sense that they are dependent on the contractors, designers and consultants for the data they are using for the decision making. And it's important that the client actually have access to all the data so that they can make real decisions based on real data and real information. In the use and maintenance phase of a building, it's as I said earlier, it's easy to think that it's a separate stage from the construction phase, and it's very common that there's a huge amount of data created during the design and construction phases of the building project, but it doesn't transfer to the use and maintenance phase of a building. And the use and maintenance, after all, is the most important part of a building, because that's actually what the whole building project is aiming for. And also we have to remember that most of the costs of a building during the whole life cycle are actually created during the use and maintenance phase and not at the construction phase. And one thing also to consider is that when we start a project, we need to already consider the use and maintenance phase and consider all the data and information we will need after the building is completed, and then actually use this knowledge in the very early stages of the design phases. And now we have talked about the challenges mostly, but when we think about the opportunities, how we are going to tackle these kind of challenges in a building project. We believe that digitalization enables us a whole new kind of information management, and this is not just about things and data and knowledge overall being electronical or being stored electronical. The data also need to be accessible, which means that it's easy to find, it's accessible for all the needed authorized users in building projects. Doesn't have to be totally open, but it's necessary that it's accessible for all the participants of the project, and that the data is transparent, which means that it's not it doesn't need necessarily any kind of expertise to be able to read it or interpret the data. And then we need proactive project management. And especially now we're talking about the data management, but of course, so that we can have successful data management, the whole project has to be managed so that we have clear rules of conduct and clear roles and responsibilities. And that is the way that we can actually anticipate problematic situations beforehand, before they have already happened. And so that we don't have to manage problems, but we can manage the risks before they become problems. And this is especially important when we talk about scheduling and cost management. When we talk about smart data, it means that the accessibility of a data isn't enough. We also have to have data that is smart in a way that we have a dynamic view to it, which means that we are able to filter it, we are able to structure it, we are able to search it efficiently. And then, of course, it's very important that the data itself is actually updated, it's real time, it's current, because in many projects. From my point of view, one of the main problems in the project is that there is different dated data for different designers, contractors, and so on. This is basically our philosophy into what we are trying to achieve with our solution. And I will go through the actual solution in a few slides. I have screenshots of our actual Modelspace solution, and I will go through how we are using our solution to actually achieve these 3 key elements: accessibility of data, proactive project management, and smart data. First of all, the Modelspace is a web-based software. It's easily learned. It doesn't need any expertise in any particular field, and the user privileges are role-based, which basically means that any participant in a building project can be easily introduced to Modelspace, can use it, and when we have the privileges role-based, we don't have to be careful about who we let in, because we can actually control what they can see, what they can edit, and so on. The Modelspace solution is a database-based solution with always up-to-date and secure data, and the space management or space data management is structured especially through a room program, or primarily through a room program, which is usually the base of any building project. Inside the software, we have room cards with the data labels, structure, the data labels themselves, and the structure of the labels is tailored for each project individually. And typically we have up to 60 to 80 rows of data or different labels for a room, and this is something that actually gives us an idea of the amount of data in a building project when we have hundreds or thousands of rooms and tens of rows of labels for each room. And in our solution, in projects already made or underway, we have the actual information stored here and utilized in Modelspace is everything from ventilation to structural information to very detailed furniture and product information, and everything in between. And with all the items here, we have the possibility to create customer unique drop-down lists, which is something I want to mention as an example, because in Finland, a couple of the biggest municipalities, the biggest cities in Finland is using Modelspace. And for them, it's especially important that they can duplicate the projects, for example, a school project from the last project they made to the next one. And they have very detailed furniture lists that they are using in all their school projects. So it's something that they don't have to do for every project, but they can actually use the Modelspace as a template for the next project. And then one thing I want to mention is that it's possible to create tasks inside Modelspace connected to a particular room, which is especially important for approval processes. if it's by the user or designers or the actual owner or project managers. And of course, we can use the task for simple questions from, let's say, from a designer to a user about some aspect of a single room. And then when we talked about the smart data and dynamic view, the way we are actually answering that is that we have very flexible, very diverse search and filtering tools of data. We have a complete view to data history, which means that we not only see when something is done, we know who, and we know what it used to be. And from my experience, one of the most tedious parts of a building project can be looking back for changes and decisions and trying to find out what was done and when was it done and by whom. And in some projects, this can lead to big problems with timetable, creating surprising extra cost, and even creating communication problems inside the design team or inside the project team. And then we also have the possibility to view the IFC model, which is basically the architect model imported inside Modelspace, and we have the information about the locations of the rooms inside the building. And then the last thing I want to tell you about the actual software is the very large collection of different kind of reports and layout and filters, which are ready to use, for example, as contract attachments, order templates, and in cost management. And in the end, I would like to recap the added value we believe our solution have for the client. From the early design phases, the client is able to control requirements and design solutions and actually be part of the design process more strongly, and especially is able to basically watch over the project in a way that is not possible with traditional methods. And during the project, the client is able to manage timetable, quality, and cost once again through the accessibility of the data and through the unfractured data, with the data in a place where it can be easily found and easily viewed and managed. And the last point is that the client is actually able to utilize all the collected data during the building process, during the design process, for the actual use and maintenance of the building, and are able to actually have a real data management and real control of the data during the whole life cycle of a building.
Thank you, Johannes. Extremely insightful presentation, especially about how Modelspace methodology can help improve the communication workflow across the whole life cycle of the building. As I mentioned in the beginning, we're introducing our partnership program. So we are creating an international network of partners and experts to engage construction professionals and help them digitize their processes. So In order to get started, you can contact me, introduce your company. This is my email, manuel.furlotti@gravicon.fi, to introduce your company. I'm looking forward to hearing from you, and then we can take it from there. We arrive at the end of our presentation. Now I think we are able to get some questions from the audience, if there are. What kind of questions for Johannes and me, if I can answer, but most I think they will be for Johannes. Feel free to ask. I think the mics are open in case someone wants to ask. I think I received some question by email as well, so maybe we can start from there. There is a raised hand, I think.
Yeah, Manuel, it's Francois.
Hello, Francois.
Hello, Johannes. Question that I have is if Johannes can give us very practical user case examples. So describing who the typical user is of the Modelspace solution and what their specific reason is that they're using Modelspace for at that stage of the project.
Thank you, Francois. I think a very typical use case for us is a hospital project, and that's something we have already really, I think we have tens of hospital cases under Modelspace, and I think the main reasons Modelspace is used quite widely in hospital projects is the things that I actually talked about quite in the beginning of the presentation about including the users in the design process. Hospitals are very typical example of buildings where there is very unique and complex technical needs, and then also very specific user processes throughout the building. And hospitals are typically buildings where the end user, who can be nurses as an occupation from their background, are basically the best professionals, the best experts of the needs inside the rooms. And as just a small example about how Modelspace can, even in the simplest forms, create added value in a hospital case, is a project where a designer had, I think it was the architect, had defined for all the patient rooms a lamp that was required by the user in the initial phase, and then it was the architect had defined a very expensive special kind of more like a surgical lamp, and then the user actually through Modelspace realized that wait a minute, this is not actually what we need. We need a reading lamp for the patients to read magazines and books. And the difference here is to have actual piece of equipment that costs thousands of euros to actually have a reading lamp that costs tens of euros. And you can imagine with hundreds of patient rooms how this kind of small, really small detail can create a huge difference in the costs. And this is just
Yeah.
one example of a really small part of the whole design process.
Okay.
So we received this question by email. What kind of example you have of a better data flow in design and construction phase with Modelspace? And I think it's connected to this. If you can monetary, like in the second question I'm reading, have you measured this monetary value from this better data flow?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. So what kind of example you have of a better data flow in design and construction phase with Modelspace?
If we talk about the data flow as a process in the design, especially in the design phase and in the construction phase, I think one good example is different kind of like acceptance. I mean, approval processes, and here it's really important to remember that when we approve something for the contractor, it's actually possible that we first have the user create requirements which can be changed during even the construction process for a room. Then we have the designer creating a solution for the requirement, and they are actually giving the Modelspace information about the design option. Then the user needs to approve the actual design, and then possibly the owner or project manager of the project will approve it, and then it will go to the contractor who will actually realize this. And as a process, if this is made by, let's say, email traditionally, can last weeks or months. If this is done by Modelspace, I believe we can, in the best case scenario, talk about days or a week, when there's no delay in finding the information. It's always in the same place with the actual approval task, and the information is not actually when we talk about data flow, it actually, the data doesn't go from person to person. It's already in the same place where everybody can access it.
Okay, thank you for your answer. I believe, let's see if we have other questions from the audience. What kind of question you have? Otherwise, if you have any other question, you come up with any question, you can send us the question by email, and we will provide an answer then later on, let's say. Seems that we don't have other questions. I think from my side, I would like to thank you for joining us today. And you can find more information in English on our website, Gravicon.fi. You can find information about the company as well, and about naturally Modelspace. There you will find us, so how to contact us in case you would like to book a demo or just read about the company as well. Thank you very much for your time today. Hope to see you soon again.